without doubts, I think it's by far the best league in Europe.
How dare you score like that in the Premier League? Mission accomplished in the Premier League. The American
Scouser.
Hello and welcome everyone to week 2 of the American Scouser TV Premier League show. I am your host, Gally. I am with, as always, my co-host, Bickler, coming to you from North Carolina, probably frustrated by the Liverpool result, but this is the Premier League show, so we can't just be frustrated about Liverpool, Paul.
Yeah, we get to be frustrated about all things Premier League. I'm just glad to have football back.
It is the best part of the Premier League show, and about being frustrated is knowing that ultimately the thing you're the most frustrated about is, well, results not going your way. So we're not going to go through all 10 matches by any means here, but I have, up on the screen right now, I've brought up our, the kind of the 10 results from this past weekend. Paul, if I asked you to just jump in here, one or two things that popped out at you, whether it be a shocking result, maybe, your biggest surprise, or even something you think is maybe going to tell a bigger story for the rest of the campaign. What would you say from this opening round of fixtures jumped out at you the most?
I guess the things that jumped out at me the most, I was looking at these teams that we were thinking are relegation fodder, teams that are going to be fighting at the bottom. Two teams that stood out to me as playing a lot better than I expected out of week 1. I know it was a 4-1 loss, but I thought Luton Town, if they play with that much spunk, with that much energy, they're going to take points off people.
Yep.
And I thought that match, 4-1 isn't really a fair – I don't think that's a fair indication of what happened in that match. I also thought that, we'll probably get into it in more detail. I thought Wolves actually looked really good versus United. Conversely, I did not think United looked as good as I expected them to be. But if Wolves can put that many shots on frame, if they can create those many opportunities, they're going to put enough goals away to get them out of those bottom 3. And I had them pegged to go down. And if they continue to play like the way they played today, they may escape that bottom 3.
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's a few-parter. One, I agree with you wholeheartedly on Luton Town. I still think it might be just a little too big an ass to stay up, but because I don't think they're going to buy the players between now and the end of the window that I think they'll actually need to maybe make that move. Where I think some of the other sides we're hearing about Bournemouth making moves. We're hearing about Burnley still in on some players. I thought Luton played a really good Brighton side at the Amex Stadium, so excited on the South Coast on a sunny day. It was a perfect day for Brighton, and everything was working their way. And Luton was still right in it with a shout. I thought Wolves was good. Man United was poor. We're going to get to the Tottenham-Brentford match because it had, for 45 minutes or 59 and
first half.
Or a 59 and a half minute first half, it was everything football is supposed to be. And then the second half was wow, I guess that was like paint drying. It was really awkward. I still can't believe that both teams finished with 11 players on the pitch with Rob Jones as the official, but we'll get to that as well. I got to say, I had a lot of hopes for Aston Villa, and I still think they're going to have a good campaign because they have a great manager. But there is something special brewing at St. James's Park. And I think there are some European teams going to come in on a really, really cold and rainy, late, dark, and dreary Tuesday night and be like, where the bleep are we? How did they let these heathens not wearing shirts with these barrel-chested, hairy-ass chests, celebrating all lubed up? Where are we? And how is this team in the Champions League? And honestly, Eddie Howe, we all talked about Eddie Howe a couple years ago. Everyone knows I was a big supporter of him getting the job. You guys didn't think it was going to work as well. It came out I was right on that one. what he did last year. None of us expect it. I think they might be about to do something even better. I know they finished this week 1 at the top of the Premier League table, and I don't expect them to finish the season there. I firmly expect City to win their last 28 matches as they do each season. But this Newcastle team is for real. They're buying the right players, and it doesn't even matter. They haven't even started buying big talents. But where they are spending their big money, Tonali, Isak, you can see the quality. And then they bring in just the fillers, Harvey Barnes, Wilson. It's all working. Joe Linton looked great. The defense looked great. Nick Pope was great again. I mean, there's something really special there. And you know what? There probably isn't a group of supporters in the Premier League who actually deserve something good to be happening for them, like Newcastle supporters do. So I'm all for it as long as it isn't in week 3 against us. So the other one for me, I was disappointed in Everton. Not that I thought they would be great, but they were good defensively, just like I thought they would be. They had all the opportunities in the first half, and it's just a prime example of not having a goal scorer. I think Calvert-Lewin will score enough goals if he's healthy this year to keep them up. I've said that all along with Sean Dyson, the defense that they have. But they really should have been up two or 3 goals at halftime if, literally you are playing at striker instead of Neil Mopai. You score one of those goals. I'll guarantee it, Paul. You might trip over your own feet like Harry Kane did that time and kick the ball with a back heel like scorpion kick into your own net. Like, he was so poor. It was as bad of a match as I've seen played offensively, yet they still probably deserve something out of it, which is crazy.
Yeah, the Neil Maupay thing's crazy because I always think that he gets way more shit than he deserves. And I was watching that game and I was like, he deserves all of it. like it was really bad. It's gotta. I can't imagine as an Everton supporter it's got to be real tough to see.
Yeah, I just genuinely don't understand it. So we talked there about the kind of the opening matches and what we saw. So I want to touch base on probably the biggest storyline from the first weekend. I stole this sign with the 12 extra minutes on the board. I'm pretty sure it was actually a championship match, so don't anyone go atting us or getting all frustrated because you see the Southampton logo on the but it was just funny because it was 12 minutes. When you watch this first weekend of Premier League football unfold, is this like the NFL, Paul? Are we going to see this for 2-3 weeks where they have a conscious mindset and then we're going to go back to 3-4 minutes? Or are we genuinely going to a world of 100 to 110 minute football matches? Because as much as I love football, I don't know that my heart can take it. I don't know that the drama can take it. And I don't know that it actually makes the play on the pitch any better.
It doesn't. And I'd like to just see us make one rule change that actually improves the game. I don't feel like we've done that in years. I think that there's probably going to be enough external pressure from managers that this probably changes at some point. I just can't see this thing continuing on like this. I don't think it makes play better. I don't think it cuts down the amount of time wasting. It just shifts the time wasting towards the end of the game when in injury time. I understand it. I think there's a happy medium, right? I don't think at the end of these games, we've seen plenty of matches where there's 3 minutes of injury time, right? And where probably 6 or 7 is appropriate, right? But I don't think I think a lot of these things, I think there was such positive reaction to it during the World Cup. I think we've just gone overboard. And I think this is very par for the course where we make rule changes that seem to shift in extremes. And we can't seem to find this happy medium. And I really think that just at the end of the day, I don't think this improves. I don't think it improves the quality of the match. And it certainly doesn't improve player safety.
Yeah, I 100% agree there. What I understand is I have no problem with the league saying, hey, if you spend 2 minutes celebrating a goal, instead of the 20, 30 seconds you're supposed to do it as a team, if you spend 2-3 minutes celebrating a goal, we're going to add 2-3 minutes on. So we're not going to let you just take that 4-0 lead City in the second half and wipe off 11 minutes so you guys can hang out with your supporters in the away end. I get that part. But if you're going to add minute for minute to the goals, you're going to hold accountable every time there's a substitution to add 45 seconds. And then you're going to add, like, with 5 substitutions aside, 3 stoppages apiece, then the injuries, then the normal shithousery, Unai Emery tactics of laying on the ball and, Jordan Pickford dying out of it.
15 minutes to every Brentford match? I mean,
honestly, Brentford, that Brentford Tottenham match could still be going on right now. Except for Rob Jones would have fought half the team. While we're at it, let's transition to one Rob Jones. And I thought this was a perfect picture, right? Because this was right when he booked Maddison for asking a question. And Maddison, I didn't even realize this. I don't really love what the new manager has done. He made a guy who barely speaks English the captain, and a guy who showed up 5 minutes ago the vice captain. That doesn't exactly make sense to me. Like, I probably would have just handed the armband to Ben Davies and been like, you've been here for a decade and you're a good dude. You're not going to play a lot. So we'll be able to hand the captain's armband to someone else, but you should be the captain of the club. I mean, like, you give the captaincy to your best player. Doesn't make sense. Like, I think Højbjerg would have got the armband if he wasn't trying to go to Atletico Madrid. Let's be real. But, like, you could have went Basuma. You could have went Romero, a big center back, a leader. Yep. Like, it doesn't make Eric Dyer. It just doesn't make sense to give it to these two players.
Makes the most sense to me, yeah.
So I've had a real problem with this referee, mainly because he's 2 feet taller than me and his arms are twice as big as mine. That's the first 2 reasons I've had a problem with him. The second reason is I genuinely believe he's in the gym as much as he is, so he can flex in front of players on Saturday and Sunday afternoon. And he always wants to be on camera. He always wants to be part of the show. So this kind of, before we talk about the actual actions that fell out in the Spurs matchup, the Premier League handed out 17 yellow cards in 10 matches for dissent to players and coaches. Now, it's a 2-parter, Paul. 1, I do believe that the game has been getting to a point where it needs a reset against players and coaches, for that matter, berating match officials. And I hate the fake yellow. I hate it, right? But are we getting to a point where if you're going to hand out a yellow every time one of these idiots does this, doesn't that also mean that guys are going to get away with yellow cards they should be wielded at in the second half of matches because they don't want to get sent off?
Sure. I think, yeah, I think it's silly, to be quite honest, because like the problem that I have is, like, when we look back at let's look at the sorry Chelsea teams or the ones that were under Mourinho. Like, I remember John Terry's final years at Chelsea. Those Chelsea sides would basically surround refs in a match. That's where, like, to me, that's where, like, I'm 100% on board with, like, making sure we root that out of the game. And I am 100% on board with rooting out these managers who tend to be verbally abusive. Jurgen Klopp being one of them. All right.
Klopp, Arteta.
Everybody who watches this knows that we're Liverpool dudes, and we make no bones about the fact that our managers, one of the reasons this rule exists. And I'm fine with that. But I think you're going to get to the point where, first of all, you're going to have a ton of player hitting yellow card caps and getting suspended from games, which I don't think is great for the game. The other thing is like, when we look at this, like, if we're concerned about the overall state of refereeing and the response to it, like, just get better. Like, one of the problems that I have is that there's a real lack of accountability in just the sheer lack of quality in refereeing in the EPL right now. And to me, it's like, I look at some of the calls and some of the non-calls this week, and I think people are reacting to referees because it's fucking awful, to be quite honest. some of the like just the actual quality that's happening across the board. So I don't agree with the all of these yellows. Do I want players asking for yellows? No, but do I think they need yellows for that? No. Also, no.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I feel like there needs to be some form of a warning or some form of you call over the captain and you say, hey, if this guy does this again, do I want the entire United team and Bruno Fernandes screaming in front of refs' faces and then people crowding around him? No, because at Old Trafford, that will change the outcome of decisions, as we saw from Simon Hooper today, right? We saw it. It was abysmal a performance. We are Liverpool supporters. We believe that Nicholas Jackson should have gotten called for a handball. But to be honest, the handball against Nicholas Jackson at least is somewhat judgmental to where what it was, or subjective at least. Was it too close to the body, natural position, all these? You can make an argument either way. I personally believe it was a handball and should have been awarded a penalty. And I think if there wasn't VAR, 4 years ago, Anthony Taylor would have pointed to the spot if he saw that. But knowing he has VAR allows him this net, which I hate even more. It's like the instant replay in the NFL or Major League Baseball or whatever sports have replay. Replay allows referees to be let off the hook to make critical decisions in moments, in the highest of moments, which is what they're there to do. It's why they're the 1% of the referees are supposed to be, right? But what happened in United's match today? In my opinion, the foul that Onana has, I think you might have called it a mugging or like it said he assaulted the player or whatever it was in our chat channel. Like it was genuinely an assault on another player and he walks away from it with nothing. And the fact that the no penalty is awarded there in real time speaks to how poor of a match official Simon Hooper is. The fact that VAR didn't have them even review it just speaks to the problems of everything that how VAR is administered in the Premier League. And I just don't see how you can give a yellow to a player for basically questioning you, but then a guy is literally assaulted in the penalty box by a keeper's elbowed in the face, hammered to the ground, when he had an opportunity to play the ball. I mean, if Onana doesn't hit him there, he may head it into the goal. It's just craziness to me.
And I think like we're making all these changes to the game, and we're putting all this technology into play the original intent was to get these decisions right and to protect the referees, right? But really all we're doing is making it so that referees don't have to manage games anymore. And essentially, we're just creating excuses across the board for and not to make, like, I'm not going to sit here, like, I don't want this to be a referee bash session. I believe it's a very difficult job. I believe it's an extremely hard job to have, which is frankly probably why there aren't just a lot of great refs out there in general. I do think it's really difficult. But the entire point of this is to manage a match, right? And really what you're telling me is that, like, if I'm just going to give a yellow for everybody who has something to say to me, like I am basically shunning the responsibility of managing the match.
Yeah, and I think that's my biggest problem is I feel like they've lost the ability to control the match. And I think we've seen that. And now I think part of that is we gave the players a little too much rope to be boisterous, to have their personalities on the pitch, to get angry about things. I mean, let's be honest. Everybody hates Anthony Taylor, right? He's from Manchester. He claims he's an Aberdeen fan, but really, we all know he's a United supporter. Like, let's be real. Everybody hates Anthony Taylor. I think Anthony Taylor is the best of the worst. And I genuinely mean that. Like, I think he is probably the best all-around English referee since Michael Oliver had the nightmare in Madrid and sent off Buffon before giving a penalty to Real Madrid and sending him to the next round for, like, the most ridiculous of red cards. And I honestly believe I believe that Michael Oliver's career hasn't responded since. But we were talking about it in the Discord channel that we have, right? Chatting during the matches. As much as Mark Clattenburg was a douche, and he was a grade A level douche, he, for a man, had the respect of the players on the pitch. If he showed you a red card, he believed in it. And he'd stand behind why he did it. And I always gave him credit that he always was in control, which is why he refereed a World Cup final, a Champions League final, a Europa League final. And we know this because he has those goddamn trophies all over his body because he's a loser. But he genuinely had a way about him in those big matches too. You knew he was going to put in a big performance in the big match. If he was reffing Liverpool City at the top of the table, he was ready for that match. He was watching players and how they dive. And when you hear him commenting and being like the color analyst as a referee, right, during broadcast, you hear him talk about how you know what players do, which players do this, like how they con officials. And he'll actually say things like, oh, no, that official was absolutely conned into this call. I would have given him a yellow card for diving. Now, it's easy to say when you're sitting at a desk and not on the pitch. But I've seen him do it in big spots. And I think when you have the respect of the players, you can get away with that. I don't know there is a referee in England today that genuinely has the respect of the players. If I said to you, who is the best match official right now in England? Could you give a name? Because I can give you 5 that are terrible, maybe 10.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem. Like, I think we just got a year removed from like 3 or 4 of these dudes retiring, right? And I feel like we're just ripping layers off the onion of dudes that don't need to be there anymore. But the problem is there's no real young talent coming up, right? And I think that's the kind of scary part about this thing. And so it's definitely an issue. Like I said, I mean, we look across the board. I'd love to see rule changes that improve the game. I'd love to see a quality of refereeing that it's just a shame because the stakes are so high for these clubs. The stakes are so high for the United match to happen like that. Like those 3 points for United and those 3 points that are lost for Wolves can significantly impact both of those teams across the board in the haul of an entire season.
Yeah, and there's no question there. I mean, ultimately, I think that Wolves put out a showing today to go on the road to Old Trafford and do what they did and show that they don't have to even – I mean, in the first half, they weren't even playing on the counter. They were the team on the front foot. Right. They created all the opportunities. They played better defense. They were more organized. I mean, I was listening. I was in the car, so I was listening on Sirius XM. I thought Paul Parker was going to lose his mind, former Manchester United left back. And he's the best, by the way. I know it's easy as a Liverpool person to hate United people, but I love a United guy who's ready to shit on everyone, including everyone at United. Like, he's the best listen ever because he just destroys people. I mean, they asked earlier, they were like, so what do you think about giving Bruno Fernandes the armband? And he's like, yeah, I always like giving an armband to a guy I'd like to play football with. I was like, that is just brilliant. Like, the fact that he said that as an ex-United guy, I was like, man, this guy is outstanding. So, we won't bash on United anymore unless I can find a way to bash on them with some transfers. So let's talk some transfers here. The last week, it's been a crazy week. It would be unfair and remiss of us. I know. It would be unfair and remiss of us not to talk about the Chelsea-Liverpool embargo. We talked about it a bunch here on the pod, Paul. I'm going to leave it at, let's talk more about the why, right? We all know why Liverpool went for Caicedo and that Chelsea wanted him all year. At what point will the Premier League do something about the contracts and the skirt tailing that ultimately is allowing Chelsea to bend and break all the rules with regards to spending money? Because if reports are true, both of these players by the end of tomorrow will both be announced as official Chelsea players. The fee will be close to almost 180 million, and their wages will be close to 200 million over the next 8 to 9 years. One, how does the Premier League put this genie back in the bottle? One, and two, can you make heads or tails why two young players would both go to a club that has already signed a player in their position for more money on higher wages in Enzo Fernandez?
I mean, I think the money in football has just gotten to the point where players don't care about footballing as much anymore. And I'll just leave it at that. I mean, I think Caicedo knows he's going to play. With Lavia, I think he's willing to go to a big club and sit and collect 200 plus a week on a long-term deal and get the cup match rotations and possibly angle for a move down the line. I think he's young enough. He thinks he can do that. And it's really sad because a player of his caliber at his age should be going somewhere where he's locked in as a starter. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if that was Liverpool. Like we talked about this, I think Lavia's got a great ceiling, and I think he's a great player. I don't think he was a locked-in improvement in our starting 11, even though we had a need. And I think at the end of the day, that's why we just had a really hard time talking ourselves into close to 60 million for that player. In terms of the long-term deals, I think a lot of that has to do with like Chelsea doesn't have UEFA restrictions because they're not in UEFA right now. So I think they were able to do some of that. I know that UEFA had closed the transfer amortization rule where you couldn't go over the 5-year on a transfer fee. They had not done that for wages. Now EPL put out a statement tonight essentially saying that they're looking to close that for next year. Doesn't do anything this year. But it looks like the EPL is going to close that loophole on the wage structures across 8-9-year deals coming into next year. I still think this has the potential to explode magnificently for Chelsea, especially if they don't hit top 4 this year. They certainly have a good enough squad to do it, but if they don't, they're going to be in deep, deep trouble. And I still think they have the potential to be on a lot of contracts on deep money with players who have the leverage to wind those down and not move and put them in a bad spot.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I mean, let's be honest. Lavia should have went to West Ham to replace Declan Rice. Played every minute of every match under a good manager. He still could have lived in London, people, and had a nice little life, made some good money, played with good players around him, and then made his move to the big club after that. Like, to me, it never made any sense. And to go be basically the third choice, defensive midfielder, for me, it seems short-sighted, but I'm a Liverpool supporter, so, if he's picking Chelsea over coming to Liverpool at this point, it might be for best in the long run. I just still look at that. I look at that move, and I question the ethics of the player. And, you made the comment earlier, right? I think it was Frank LaBeouf the pundit on ESPN, ripped. I mean, if you want to find a good viral video, find him going off on footballers not wanting to play football. And it was basically David Raya going to Arsenal to be the backup so he could get £100,000 a week raise at Brentford. There were Premier League sides ready to make him a starter. Hell, if I were him, I'd be really pissed because I think Madrid would have came in for him, seeing that he was a starter for Spain recently. And instead, they got Kepa, and he's a backup at Arsenal. And who knows? David Raya might become the starter at Arsenal and might win the job from Aaron Ramsdale, and that would be great and good on him. But honestly, it made no sense to me whatsoever when I heard Raya was going to leave Brentford, when he could have went to Tottenham, when he could have went to other clubs and been an everyday starter, except for he wanted the cash. It has to be the cash because a keeper shouldn't want to sit. I'm sorry, especially not one that was arguably top three in his prime, top 3 in the best league in the world, most competitive league in the world. Hell, spend another season. So the Caicedo thing was tough. Obviously, it was all played out. Before we move on to looking at some of the other ins and outs of the Premier League, as we kind of wind down the program here, I do want to touch on one thing that came out of the Caicedo kerfuffle, saga, whatever you want to call it, which is something I am all for, because anyone who has ever used one of my usernames and passwords on TV know that we watch some drama TV in this household, which means I like me a little bit of social media beef.
I feel like you're talking directly to the fact that I own half of your logins.
You do own half my logins, and I know what you watch. Like, so Kelly will say to me,
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Kelly will joke with me every once in a while and be like, I have to fast forward through this freaking Sonic movie. I swear Paul's kids watch 20 minutes of a movie and check out, and my wife can't handle the continue watching, so she actually fast forwards all the way through till the end every single time they watch something, which is outstanding.
Hey, they fall asleep. I can't help it.
Just keep it up. I give you credit. Whatever you're doing to get them to go to sleep, well done. Or you just keep them up till 3 a.m, one or the other. But I love me some journo on journo fucking beef, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And there was nothing better out of this. And I don't like myself some Melissa Reddy. I will say that right here. Great Instagram photos, not a great journalist. I will say this. She earned some credibility with me over the last week because she was the first to literally attack Fabrizio Romano by name in her own tweets, basically saying, Stu's got an agenda, look out for this. Before you knew it, we had Liverpool spoof burner accounts getting him to respond. It was absolutely brilliant that fraud had to come out of his little like shell in Milan or wherever he is and realize he is nothing but a shill for the organizations that he covers. And let's be real, guys. He has 2 or 3 teams in every single league. Every news article you have ever heard has been fed to him by the clubs. I always feel like you know where a reporter stands. They either have player sources or they have club sources. This guy has always had club sources. And every single post he had was written as if Todd Bowley told him what to say and when to post it. Like they might have had the actual scheduled tweets ready for him. I loved it. It was entertaining to me. Does it make you as happy when like frauds are called out in public as what happened in those 72 hours? Because I mean, he's getting ripped everywhere, left, right, and center.
100%. It was a little bit disappointing when I got up today and like saw the retweet where he basically is at 4.5 billion followers and like listed as the most influential person on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, because that's just kind of a sad for the state of football. But I think that kind of speaks to where football's at, right? Like if we look at transfer business in general, especially with the Caicedo thing and all the backdoor dealing and the agent stuff and how all this stuff happens, it feels really disgustingly predatory amongst people just basically capitalizing off talent. And essentially that's what Fabrizio has done, right? He's capitalized off local journalism. He's capitalized off club ties. And essentially he angles. And so like, yeah, it's great to see that. I wish that more people are understood that and didn't think that like, because they're like the majority of people out there think that Fabrizio Romano is a god in transfers, and he's not.
No, it's here we go. Ultimately, people, just so we're all clear, it was all his little play on Mario being Italian. And here we go. Like, that's what that was supposed to be, like his little thing. And it's kind of a joke because he really doesn't break any stories. He regurgitates other people's stories without giving them credit for the stories in which they break. And if you find a time where he cites somebody else for anything, like I'll raise my hands and apologize to him.
Which is impossible to break that much news and not source anybody. Correct.
Which is why I will say, as much as some of the English reporters drive me crazy, it's why I will, like, I'll go to Ornstein's. I'll go to David Ornstein's stuff because David Ornstein will tell you where he heard it. Goal is reporting this is happening. Or I have sources within the club at Chelsea. You'll never see Fabrizio Romano say he had told to me by a trusted source within Liverpool Football Club. That is never, ever coming out of his mouth. And it used to be that way with James Pearce with Liverpool, right? He always had the sources. You know why? because he was tied inside. And then as soon as you go to a paywall channel place, a place where you're more about clicks and less about reporting and less about integrity, you'll never, ever have those sources inside the building. So where do you go then? Now you start working with third-party agents, brokers, and the shadiest people in all of football. So let's talk about a couple other transfers here in the Premier League. This one I actually loved. I think it's a great signing. West Ham signs James Ward-Prowse. Feel like they got themselves a perfect player for them. He's going to add to their midfield. He is not Declan Rice by any means, but I do think he gives them a little bit of that Mark Noble leadership that they're probably losing. And when you lose Noble and Declan Rice in the same offseason, I think you need some of that English prowess. And I think we also know, they're probably going to get 5 more set piece goals this season. And I think that they're a lot more prepared if Paqueta happens to end up signing the deal with City on the way out, right? So forget the players leaving West Ham at the moment or being rumored with leaving. If you're a West Ham supporter and you wake up and they've signed James Ward-Prowse this morning, are you happy?
I love this signing. I mean, we talked about this when we talked about transfers for Liverpool. I mean, I think that he ticks a lot of boxes all around. I mean, everybody talks about the free kicks, but his off-the-ball movement and his work rate in the midfield is top-notch. I mean, I'm talking 10% in the league in terms of press win rate. That dude works. And so, if I'm a West Ham supporter, I'm over the moon for that. Granted, he's up there. He's getting up there in age, but you got a couple of years or you got a workhorse in there that's going to bring a ton of leadership. He's one of the best free kick takers in the world, and he's going to do the dirty work.
So while we talk on West Ham really quick, I know they panned out today. USA, NBC Sports, whatever channel, Peacock, wherever you were watching the match, they panned off to the slab head today on the bench. Harry Maguire sitting there looking irritated that he's still there, even though West Ham supposedly had agreed the deal. If West Ham end up pulling the Harry Maguire signing over the line, and it's only $20 million and reasonable wages with United paying half the wages, you see that as a positive move for West Ham, a negative move for West Ham, or is it just positive for United that he's no longer there?
Oh, I think it's probably positive for Harry Maguire. I think it's positive for United, and I think it's positive for West Ham. I think people are going to talk a lot of shit about this, you know what I mean? But Harry Maguire was a different player for the national team because of the way they set up. And I think he'll be a different player for West Ham because of how they set up.
I agree. And to be fair to Harry Maguire, people forget this. He was never worth $80 million. That was United's mistake for paying it. But that's not Harry Maguire's fault or Leicester City's fault for forcing them to pay that money. And let's be fair, by the way, Manchester City bid $68 million for Harry Maguire, by the way, before United came in with an $80 million bid to win it. So Pep thought he was worth going out and trying to sign. And who knows, he probably would have turned him into a great player because that's what Pep does. But Harry Maguire's first year at United playing under Ole wasn't that bad, actually. He was some of the stability they actually offered at the back. So it was really when the tactics changed, and he was never going to fit in playing a high line like Ten Hag wants to play. Yeah. So I completely understand why it didn't work and why he has to go. And again, I've said this about Dejan Lovren at his time during Liverpool. I always find it when a player takes the wrath of the supporters for everything bad that happens and never says a negative word about the club, never says a negative word about the supporters who are vilifying his family and putting up nasty tweets. Harry Maguire has done nothing but, honestly, outside of a bad weekend in Greece in a summer 4 years ago, has really done nothing to besmirch Manchester United other than some mistakes. And I honestly, and I know this will upset Liverpool supporters, I want him to succeed. One, to stick it to United, And because I think that's what sports should be about. Guys like that getting a big move and failing, and then going somewhere else and doing it right and succeeding. And I genuinely think he will be a big, big success, honestly, at West Ham, because playing for David Moyes, I think it's absolutely perfect. Like, and I won't be shocked at all if he's literally club captain by January, because he is a leader. And I could see him going right in and stepping right in and like playing a big role there. So this one was almost more for fun. And honestly, how could we have a podcast talking about players moving and not talk about Adama Traore, seeing how much we talk about him? And honestly, Fulham deserves an enormous amount of credit for the fact that they used this as their way of revealing the transfer. Like, this was an official Fulham tweet. Just a bottle of Johnson baby oil, letting everyone know that Adama Traore had signed. Honestly, we don't have to talk much more because I don't think it's really going to do anything for Fulham, because I'm pretty sure that they're better at all positions without him. Like, he'll probably be a cup game fill-in, right? Like, he's a cup match sub.
They'll throw him in at like the 75th, 80th minute if they're chasing a game. You know what I mean? Like, just for the sheer chaos of it, because I mean, he just has the top end pace to burn, but the end product is just so poor. So I mean, I could see him late subs, but I don't think they're not buying him to be a key piece, right? I mean, they're buying him to be another option off the bench.
Yeah, I feel like when a player gets a loan move to a place like Barcelona and can't get into Wolves' side,
yeah,
like the bloom's off that rose, people. Like, I know he came out of the Barcelona academy and then he went to, forget where he went first, Coventry maybe, then Middlesbrough, then Wolves, then, now Fulham.
If he's not built the way he is, nobody's talking about him.
Correct. I mean, he looks a physical specimen. You see the athletic ability. He just has no end product. And I think when you have no end product, it's even harder. Like, with no end product, but playing in Barcelona, at least you create space for others and you run and you might be able to, you just cross the ball and then you hope Dembele or this great player creates, right? Messi, whoever, like, creates something. That's Raul Jimenez and, Vinicius Jr. Like, come on. Like, this is Fulham, people. And you have Harry Wilson starting on the right wing and his sub, like maybe the slowest right wing in the history of professional football, right? Being replaced by a Tasmanian devil who can't play football. It's an absolute Fulham move.
It's amazing because you got not only the slowest, but a kid with a wand of a left foot, and then you've got a Traore who has two hammers for feet.
Yeah, it just makes no sense. And you play both of them on the right. Like, you play both of them on the right. It's just it's unbelievable. I just had to. We can't get past, we really can't get past the podcast without talking about Manchester City moves. Kevin De Bruyne goes down injured. I don't think it's that big of a shock seeing how often he goes off injured. The fact that it's another hamstring injury, I know they're saying weeks, we're not sure. To me, it feels like it's going to be a couple months and it could be a lot longer. And I expect him to come back for a week or two and then be out again. Like, it might be the end of Kevin De Bruyne at the top level.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So rumors are, and coming off of our James Ward-Prowse signing, rumors are that they are in for Paqueta. West Ham wants $100 million. City wants to pay about 70 or 80. I'm not that chafed about the player because I think he's good. Now, I always get afraid when I say a guy at West Ham is good and he's a Brazilian international and then you put him in Pep's team because he'll probably become great. I'm not that chafed about him. I'm almost more interested in the idea that they are close to signing, I guess, the Rennes right winger Jeremy and Doku, who we have been, Liverpool has been linked with for years now. Still needs to take that next step, the Netherlands international or Belgian international, I'm sorry, to really show that he can have the level of goals in his game that a top level winger needs. Either one of these signings to you feel like a City signing, or actually do you think they make their teams better?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't feel like either of these signings feel like City signings to me. And maybe I'm just missing something on Paqueta. I'm never that wowed by him. Like I think Doku is a year or two away for like City usually takes players when they're already ready. And I feel like Doku is like a year or two away from that. But I'll say this, if I'm picking one of these two, I'm picking Doku as a wide option, and I'm moving Foden inside.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And that is part of the reason why I think Doku is the one of the two that you would take. And I think the one I would sign if I were City, because one, it's going to be about 35, 40 million. Now, what I will say is they make their moves on Sane. They made their move on Sterling. They made their move on, on Fernan Torres. What City does better than anyone, and we talk about it all the time, is they cut their losses when they realize the guy doesn't work. But they still end up making money, these bastards. So I think Doku makes all the sense in the world at 35, 40 million, because I think you can give him time to find his way. You have players. I personally believe that Alvarez is the key to the City attack this season. Like, we all know Haaland is Haaland, people. Grealish is going to play. Like, anyone who thinks that was their best 11 isn't paying attention that they're playing the Super Cup on Wednesday, and Pep wants to win every trophy that's ever been put in front of him, which is why he didn't start 3 of his best 5 players, like, in the match. He was resting people for the Super Cup match against Sevilla. So I could see that happening. I like the Doku signing because I think Alvarez is going to play a lot on the right and play a lot in the De Bruyne role. I agree with you. I think it's Foden's time now to play in the 10, and it's time to bring him into the midfield where he belongs. Pep has done a nice job of not giving Foden too much. One, because I think he knows how to bet in young players and not overwork them early in their careers. Some other managers around the league that get a lot of credit should probably pay attention to that. 2, I also think Pep knows. I think Pep doesn't get enough credit for being a great man manager. And I think he knew that Phil Foden was the type of young piece of shit you don't want to give too much to too early.
Totally.
Because it could have all went awry. Because, if Jack Grealish had half the talent Phil Foden had and was at as big of a club, he'd be in jail right now.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's not even and Foden and his mom almost ended up in jail just going to one Liverpool UFC fight. So, in all seriousness, they picked a fight with security. Like, if you're picking fights with security, his mother was throwing punches and he was behind her. And I think that's where Pep knows his players. Like, he was like, yeah, Mahrez can't even speak the language, barely talks. He can go in and out of the lineup, floats, he's highs, lows. We can't let Phil Foden become Mason Greenwood, or he'll be Mason Greenwood. And there's a reason, by the way, 2 guys got thrown out of English camp, Mason Greenwood and Phil Foden. And what was the first thing that Southgate did? He brought Foden back in and said, stop hanging out with the troublemaker guys. You ever do this again, you won't come back into England camp. Mason Greenwood's never smelt the English camp again. Because, to Southgate's credit, unlike the shitty people at United, I think he genuinely saw that it wasn't a problem in the dressing room. It was a problem in the man. And there's either good or bad. And I think there are those different levels. And I don't think Phil Foden's a dink. I don't think Phil Foden's a terrible human being. And I think there is a world-class footballer who probably just needs a better barber. Because if his hair looked better and I would probably like him a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I fold into like he just strikes you as a street kid who very easily hangs out with the wrong people, right? So I think you're totally right. I think there's enough senior leadership at that club that's really saved that situation too.
So we talked about the incoming transfers. I think we would be remiss to have a Premier League show and arguably not talk about one of the best 5 or 10 Premier League players of the last 10 to 15 years leave the league finally and give a little time to talk about Harry Kane. Now, because we like to poke fun, is interesting that he went to Bayern, made his debut, and they lost a goddamn trophy. Like, I just feel like that punchline was set up for me that I had to find this picture. Like, the only other thing I'd like to do is talk through my mouth a little bit.
It's also like a trophy they haven't lost in 15 years. Like,
yeah, it's just unbelievable. Now, do I blame Harry Kane for them losing? I don't. Do I think that Harry Kane will be a success at Bayern? I actually do, because Harry Kane scores goals. And he's now playing around the best crop of players. He's never played, as good as Son is, he's never had Serge Gnabry and Leroy Sané,
midfield behind him,
and Musiala behind him, and Goretzka, and even
Kimmich.
Muller hanging out with him, running off of him, playing off striker, right?
Yeah.
Last year at times when they would go 2 up top, he had Richarlison. Now he has Muller. Like, let's be honest here. Like, let's think about the combination there. Like, at times he was playing with Ryan Mason, and now he's playing with Jared Musiala. Like,
I just picture him like looking like a kid that goes into the aquarium for the first time, where he's just like, "What is this?" Like,
yeah, he sees the big fish. The big fish just swims over in front, and he's like, "Wait!" And then he looks at him, and he's like, "Wait, that's a goalkeeper who can actually stop a shot. That goalie's got a foot. What's going on?" No. And, you know, the funny part about Harry Kane, and we've talked about it, and I'm a Harry Kane apologist. I'm the first one to admit it. I think Harry Kane is an exceptional footballer. He finally made it, and in my opinion, became the best number 9 in England, and then literally was like, you know what? I'm not done with my game. I'm not okay with just being the best natural goal scorer in England. And then was like, I'm going to become a all-around footballer. And I feel like he reinvented himself and actually learned how to drop deep. He watched Bobby Firmino and was like, that guy Bobby Firmino, he is fun to watch. He makes great runs. He's intelligent. He drops deep and creates space for guys like Son to run in front of him and gets assists. And, well, fuck, I can score 30 goals a year on top of it. And I don't think he's ever actually gotten that credit for being an all-around footballer because he's a mouth breather, because his brother's his agent, and he was at Tottenham until now. So I'll ask you this. If Harry Kane does not win the Champions League, is his move to Germany a failure?
No, because he got out of Tottenham. Like, you know what
That's
I mean?
fair.
Like, like, because I think, like, either way, he's going to go into a league where I expect, I mean, I do think that Bayern is getting the gap closed on them very dramatically and very quickly by Leipzig.
We saw it last year. Both Leipzig and Dortmund, and that was a bad Bayern team that won, luckily.
Right. I still expect him to go win trophies that he would have never won at Tottenham, both at like the club cup level and at the league level.
I guess where I come back to that though is that him joining? Is that like a guy wanting a medal and going to PSG and then not winning that medal? Like, if you go to PSG and you win the French league, did you win a medal or did you go join a team that wins the league every year? Like, that's what I'm asking. Like,
here's what the difference is, though. The difference, like, if I'm going to make an analogy, like, I understand what you're saying, but I think there's a difference between a player like Genie going to PSG to win medals and a player like Mo Salah going to PSG to win medals, right? Like,
fair.
I think like he's of the caliber where you're going to win because of him, not because you're on a team that just happens to be really good. And I think that's the difference. I think that he has reached that echelon where he's a big enough talent that I think for him it's important to almost like have that stardom outside of England and really be a bona fide international star.
That was the biggest part for me. Was I've always said this, right? Because I support the player. I've liked the player. I defend the player as much as I've made fun of his brother for being his agent and all the problems that come with that, right? I still to this day, and I will say this and people will call me crazy, I still believe if 2 years ago, 3 years ago at this point, he had signed with City when they went for Ronaldo and they wanted him and they weren't going to get Haaland, I genuinely believe that City would be a better footballing team if Harry Kane had gone there and played with De Bruyne at the prime with that setup. I think they would have been better than Haaland, like with Haaland. Because I think Harry Kane can score every goal that Erling Haaland can score. And I think he's a better footballer. And he plays in that style. They've changed their style because of him. I think if it hits right, Harry Kane has a chance to honestly win the Ballon d'Or. Because I think they could, if it went right one year, they could win the treble. And if they won the treble, and he's the number 9 for the best team in Europe winning a treble and the Champions League, and let's not forget, like 35% of the votes come out of England, and they still love themselves, the captain of the English national team. I genuinely believe Harry Kane puts himself in that window, and I think if he can get to that level, it makes, even if he's in the top 3 or 4 voting for the Ballon d'Or, I think Harry Kane makes this move worthwhile. And for all the people out there that are like, he should have stayed in the Premier League. If he'd stayed in the Premier League, he would have won a record. He would have won a record that no one actually cares about. Because I've said it before, nobody remembers Alan Shearer scoring the most goals in the history of the Premier League. They remember him winning a goddamn Premier League winner's medal for winning the league. And I to me, it still comes down to team accolade over personal accolades if you're a real champion and a great player. And I do think he is that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I won't lie. I'm not a big Bayern fan. I usually root for them to lose. I'll probably continue to root for them to lose. But I would like to see him do good because I think he deserved it. I think he's that great a player. And I think he was also a really, really good servant and soldier for Tottenham. And I think he did it right, leaving the way he did. And the money they get, if they respend properly, they'll do well with. But he helped build that stadium, that Mona Lisa of football stadiums that they have. So we're going to end it on this really quick. Any type of like overreaction, like week 1 jumps out at you, Premier League, Villa's going to finish bottom, Newcastle's going to win it. Anything that you would say, like, what would your number 1 overreaction for the first week of the Premier League season be?
Overreaction. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think everything kind of went to script. That's the interesting thing. Like, I don't think there was a lot of really crazy twists and turns. If I'm going to overreact about something, it's probably about how fucking good Newcastle looked. Like, Sandro Tonali may have just played himself out of getting back to Italy ever.
Yeah, I was going to say, I will say if an overreaction came, it was my underwhelming prediction that Sandro Tonali looked like he didn't want to be in Newcastle because he looked like he fucking liked where he was, let me tell you. So predictions aside, yeah. I'll say this. My overreaction will be, I believe that Robert De Zerbi might be the best manager in the world because the job he's doing at Brighton and what I saw from Brighton could have scored 8. And it wouldn't have been enough. They were that good. And we talked about how well Luton looked and how plucky they were and how hard they fought. But Brighton just kept coming and coming and coming and all match long, no matter who they brought in. I mean, they went to their fifth sub. Their fifth sub was the kid who I thought might be the breakout star of the Premier League season. Like, it was amazing. They brought in two guys I didn't know their names, and one scored a goal and the other created one. And I was like, you fuckers. This is unbelievable what they do. Like, and they didn't start Veltman. They went with Van Heck. He played great. They still have Lewis Dunk in the starting lineup, which makes no goddamn sense. They were able to play without Caicedo. They were able to play without McAllister. They move Gross around the pitch. It doesn't matter where they put him. And all you see is like everyone in the crowd, they just buy into the manager. They buy into the club. There's something special happening on the South Coast. So if I was going to go with my overreaction for week 1, it would be on that performance. Brighton Hove Albion is one of the 4 best teams in the Premier League. And it is asinine to say that out loud, but that team would have beaten Manchester United by 4 goals today. And I don't even know if it would be close. And, and I say they're in the top 4, and if they're in the top 4, Liverpool probably isn't. So
my prediction looks good.
Your prediction looks good. That doesn't help for the rest of the season of the podcast, but I'm hoping it's an overreaction and that shit comes back to form in place. And I think when they go into Europe and they have to play the FA Cups, and because I do think when you're a club like Newcastle or you're a club like Brighton, you don't have the luxury of balancing your squads. Brighton has to go for Europe because they may never get there again. And they owe it to the supporters who almost fell out of the football league, right? Last day of the season, 15 years ago, they're almost out of the league. Tony Bloom keeps them in, and then they work their way all the way back up to the Prem. They get the Amex Stadium. Like, everyone's, if you've watched a match on Peacock, you've seen the 3-minute highlight of why we should all love Brighton. I swear Brighton should have the most American supporters because they've told us every chance they can how wonderful this story is. But I do think there is something there, but I also think they have to take Europe serious, and I think that's going to be difficult with the size of their squad, the Thursday to Sundays. So we'll see. But, like, for me, week 1, Brighton Hove Albion look like they're one of the best 4 teams in the league. The manager genuinely looks like he should be talked at on the levels of Eddie Howe, Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, and, Unai Emery, the other great manager, Mikel Arteta, whatever you want to talk about.
I didn't think you were going to say it.
I had to do it, son of a bitch. But I genuinely think that he has to be talked in that light. And if I'm Brighton, I'm doing everything I can to get this guy to re-up. He sounds like he says all the right things, but it's still hard because he is truly Italian. He's talked about wanting to coach the Italian national team. The only way to do that is to win in England or to win in Italy. It's the only way they'll let you coach that team is to win something in Italy. So, like, when Juventus comes calling, when Napoli or AC Milan, he will probably leave Brighton. And if I were Brighton, I would be pulling everything I could because they never in a million years would have thought the day Graham Potter left, their club would be kicking on. Right. They thought they would be taking a huge step back. And they not only kicked on, they kicked on to a level that I think is putting them like at the level of being able to compete for a European trophy of some type. Whether that's the Europa, the conference eventually, maybe Champions League someday. Like, it's a special time for Brighton. So my overreaction for week 1, Brighton's even better than I thought. And De Zerbi is the manager that I would probably have if Jurgen Klopp wasn't my manager, which is crazy to say out loud. But you listen to that guy talk, and all you have to hear is, what do you think of Caicedo to Chelsea? And his response was, I don't know that name. We only care about people who are here with Brighton and want to be with Brighton. We wish him the best. And they were like, he's still a member of your club. And he's like, no, he's not.
No, he's not.
And it was like, I literally... See that brick wall behind you, Paul? I'm running through it for that dude. all day and twice on every day of the week and twice on Sundays. Unless, of course, we're going to play Monday morning, and then maybe I'll do it on Tuesday. All right. For myself, for all the other members of the American Scouser team, we thank you, as always, for watching. Please head over to the YouTube channel if you're not there already watching this show. Go ahead, give it a like, give it a subscribe, add a comment. Subscribe to the channel, get all the updates. We do the fantasy show on Thursday nights, the Monday night podcast, the Thursday night podcast. We are starting a Premier League panel show where we'll have guest contributors from other clubs talking about their clubs. We're also, of course, doing our Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. Yep, I got that right. 10 Eastern, 9 Central. The morning coffee show with Timuchin and his gang of guests. So jump in, let us know how we're doing, like and subscribe, goes a long way, share or bring new folks to us, and more importantly than anything, just enjoy the Premier League, folks. It's finally back. Any final words, Paul?
Nope. See you guys next week.
We'll be back Monday. We'll have our week 2 overreactions, which will probably be Brighton losing a match and Galley telling you they are shite. All right, everyone. Have a great week.